Chosen one, they marked a date on their calendar, a court appearance they were certain you would never make. Their confidence stemmed not from legal strategy, but from lethal calculation. They measured doses, created accidents, and manipulated your environment, all synchronized to ensure your physical form would dissolve from existence before justice could manifest through your testimony. Their smug whispers in darkened rooms now transform to panic as your continued breathing defies their deadline. The cosmic forces preserving your existence laugh at their arrogance while preparing the perfect revelation of everything they attempted to bury alongside you. The betrayal cuts deepest from those sharing your blood. Family members whose loyalty should have been unquestionable became the most dangerous elements in this conspiracy. The mother who once held you now held meetings about you. The siblings who shared your childhood shared information about your movements. The home that should have been your sanctuary became your greatest vulnerability. They smiled while setting traps. They embraced you with arms that had just finished signing documents against your interests. They broke bread with you after breaking trust. Their manipulation extended into the very legal system designed to protect you. False statements submitted under oath, your identity used in documents you never saw, convenient delays in proceedings that were anything but coincidental. They pulled strings with hands stained by corruption, ensuring that justice would be postponed just long enough for their ultimate plan to succeed. They believed that by the time the system finally turned its eyes to their crimes, you would be a memory, not a witness. But they failed to destroy the evidence that now forms the chain of their undoing. The money transfers that connect them all in a web of conspiracy. The text messages they thought were deleted but remain retrievable in digital space. The witnesses who saw them meeting in parking lots and restaurant corners, heads bowed in criminal collaboration. The paper trail of their malice extends further than they realized, and it leads directly to their doorsteps. Their fingerprints are all over this scheme, both literally and figuratively. Watch their faces now. See the panic rising as each day brings you closer to that courtroom date, still breathing, still standing, still determined to speak. Their casual confidence has transformed into frantic desperation. The subtle attempts have given way to increasingly reckless actions. They're making mistakes now, critical errors born from the realization that their timeline has collapsed. You were supposed to be gone by now. Your continued existence defies their entire strategy. The authorities are beginning to connect points they never anticipated would form a pattern. The detective who noticed inconsistencies in their stories, the financial investigator who flagged unusual movements of money, the medical examiner who questioned the symptoms you reported. The pieces are aligning into a picture they can no longer distort. The truth emerges like the sun after an eclipse, temporarily hidden, but ultimately unstoppable in its revelation. Justice moves with thunder now. Court notices delivered to doorsteps, frozen bank accounts, assets suddenly under scrutiny, their phones ringing with calls from lawyers they can barely afford, their carefully constructed reputations crumbling. As whispers of their true nature spread through the community they worked so hard to deceive. The masks they wore are slipping, revealing the faces of desperation beneath. They stand now as exposed conspirators rather than respected citizens. Your continued survival demands vigilance. Document everything. The unusual car that passes your home too slowly, the sudden friendly outreach from people who abandoned you months ago, the gifts that arrive without explanation. Trust nothing that cannot be verified. Keep distance from those whose actions contradict their words. Secure your living space against both physical and energetic intrusions. Their failure has made them dangerous in new ways, understand this fundamental truth. The full scope of this conspiracy will soon enter public record. Names will be called. Relationships will be exposed. Hierarchies of betrayal will be established. The mastermind and the followers, the planners and the executors, those who conceived the plot and those who simply failed to warn you. None will escape the flood of disclosure that approaches. The court date they feared, the one you were never supposed to witness, will become the stage for their complete unraveling. They calculated everything except your spiritual fortitude. They measured all factors except the cosmic protection surrounding you. They accounted for human frailty, but overlooked divine intervention. Their arrogance blinded them to forces moving behind the scenes, forces that have marked you for continuation, not conclusion. The unseen hands that kept the poison from reaching your heart, the intuitive nudges that made you discard that drink at the last moment, the coincidental delays that kept you from driving down that road where they waited, the sudden illness that prevented you from eating what they had prepared. These weren't lucky breaks or random chance. This was spiritual warfare, where your guardians outmaneuvered your enemies at every turn. Every breath you take defies their deadline. Each morning you rise constitutes another failure in their scheme. Your very existence has become an act of rebellion against their careful planning. They whisper among themselves with increasing panic. Why are they still here? What went wrong? How much do they know? They cannot comprehend the power that sustains you because it comes from a source beyond their material understanding. The conspiracy stretched wider than even you have yet realized. Colleagues who suddenly became interested in your schedule, neighbors who watched your comings and goings with unusual attention, medical professionals who asked questions unrelated to your care. The network of surveillance they constructed around you was extensive, designed to track your movements and report your vulnerabilities. Your instinctive distrust of certain individuals wasn't paranoia. It was spiritual discernment functioning perfectly. Their timeline had specific markers: the initial weakening phase, the introduction of stronger substances, the final act that would ensure your permanent absence. All calibrated around legal deadlines that required your non-existence. The court date was their point of no return, the moment when only your death would prevent their exposure. They counted backward from that date, allotting specific periods for your declining health, final arrangements, and the closing of your case. The financial gain they anticipated was substantial, not merely thousands, but life-changing sums that would have transformed their circumstances entirely. Property that would change hands upon your death. Insurance policies taken out without your knowledge. Inheritance structures that would redirect your portion to their accounts. Business interests that would transfer in your absence. The motivation wasn't small-minded greed, but calculated avarice on a scale that justified risk. Their confidence led them to make commitments based on your expected departure. Purchases with money they didn't yet have. Promises to creditors about imminent payments. Plans for relocated living arrangements. Vacations booked for after it's all handled. They built futures on the foundation of your non-existence, creating financial pressures that now squeeze them as their plans collapse. Their desperation intensifies with each bill that comes due against resources they thought your death would provide. The hierarchy of this conspiracy will shock even you when fully revealed. Those you suspected were merely pawns controlled by hands you never anticipated. Familiar faces were masked operatives for interests existing far from your daily life. Some participated knowingly, others unwittingly, manipulated by partial truths and deliberate misdirection. The web extends into institutions you trusted and relationships you valued. The betrayal is both wider and more targeted than you've yet comprehended. Alert code red, chosen one. We're growing fast. Building an unstoppable media network they can't erase, but let's not sugarcoat it. The truth is still hidden. It's been twisted. It's been buried under censorship, algorithms, and fear. Yet your heart never stopped recognizing what's real. That's why you're still here. That's why you never tapped out. Because you felt the simulation glitch beneath your feet. You know this world is rigged, and you're done waiting for permission to rise. The Obsidian Inner Order wasn't built for the curious. It was forged for the committed. This is for the full-time chosen, the ones who came to lead, the ones who see beyond the veil and act anyway. Inside, we hold weekly Zoom calls that cut through the noise. We share hidden teachings most were never meant to hear. We train in psychic warfare, strategy, and spiritual technologies they've kept locked away for centuries. This is the toolkit for the real ones, the ungovernable, the impossible to erase. It's time to remember who you are. The link is in the description. Your real life begins inside. Their methodology reveals long-term planning. This wasn't a sudden decision, but a strategy developed over months or even years. They studied your habits. They learned your vulnerabilities. They mapped the rhythms of your daily existence. They identified the weak points in your physical health and psychological defenses. They created detailed profiles of those you trusted, finding pressure points to ensure compliance or silence. Nothing about their approach was amateur or impulsive. This was calculated elimination. The spiritual dimension of this attack cannot be overlooked. Beyond physical methods, they employed darker techniques, energetic manipulation designed to weaken your resolve, ritual workings timed to cosmic patterns that they believed would amplify their effectiveness, objects placed in your proximity to disrupt your spiritual protection. They attacked on multiple planes simultaneously, another sign of their comprehensive determination to ensure you wouldn't survive to see that court date. What they've unleashed through these actions cannot be recalled. Universal law operates with perfect precision. Energy returns to its sender with multiplied force. The harm they intended for you has reversed its trajectory toward its originators. Their sleepless nights are not merely from guilt, but from the cosmic boomerang now returning to their doorstep. Their declining fortunes, deteriorating health, and collapsing relationships aren't bad luck. They're mathematical spiritual consequence. The court date they feared now approaches with unstoppable momentum. The date circled in red on their calendar. The deadline they believed would never include your presence. The moment of truth they were certain would occur without your testimony. It comes now not as their salvation, but as their judgment. Not as the closing of your case, but as the opening of theirs. Not as a period to end your sentence, but as the beginning of chapters they never wanted written. Their panic manifests in increasingly visible ways. Emergency meetings behind closed doors, frantic calls at unusual hours, sudden sales of assets, unexpected travel plans, relationships between conspirators fracturing under pressure, accusations among former allies. The unity of their plot dissolves. As self-preservation becomes each participant's primary concern, they turn on each other now, hoping to secure immunity through betraying former partners. The psychological toll breaks them in distinctive ways. Some collapse into paranoia, jumping at shadows and suspicious of surveillance. Others adopt false bravado, maintaining increasingly hollow claims of innocence. Some retreat into substance abuse, seeking chemical escape from their approaching reality. The more pragmatic begin negotiating with authorities, offering information in exchange for leniency. Their once solid front splinters into individual strategies for survival. Those who orchestrated from the shadows now face exposure to light. the financiers who provided resources but maintained distance, the advisors who suggested methods but never directly participated, the professionals who looked away in exchange for compensation, the system of accountability expanding beyond the immediate actors to encompass the entire infrastructure that enabled their plot. No link in this chain remains shielded from examination. The evidence preserves itself through methods they couldn't anticipate, automated backups of conversations they thought deleted, geolocation data placing them at significant locations, financial records documenting suspicious timing of transactions, witness memories more accurate than they gambled on, medical tests more revealing than they understood, security footage archived longer than standard policy. The digital age preserves truth in redundant systems beyond their ability to corrupt completely. Their failure reveals fundamental misunderstandings about your nature. They evaluated you through the limited lens of their own character, assuming vulnerabilities that weren't yours, weaknesses you had already overcome, and spiritual isolation you never experienced. They projected their own mortality and fragility onto a being operating under different cosmic laws. They underestimated not just your physical resilience, but your multidimensional protection. The spiritual contract you signed before incarnation supersedes their earthly plots. Your presence here fulfills purposes they cannot comprehend, operating on timelines they cannot manipulate. Your departure date was established with precision that honors your soul's mission, not their convenience. The forces preserving your existence work with authorities far higher than those they attempted to corrupt. Your protection comes from chambers where their influence cannot reach. There, miscalculation extended beyond your survival to the consequences of their failure. They had no contingency for facing you across that courtroom, no strategy for looking into the eyes of the person they attempted to eliminate, no preparation for the moment when you would speak the truth they desperately sought to silence. This psychological confrontation may prove more devastating than the legal penalties, the unavoidable moment when their actions stand naked before the one they were designed to harm. The cosmic timing proves more precise than they could have imagined. Had their plan succeeded, certain evidence would have remained undiscovered. Specific witnesses would have stayed silent. Particular connections would have gone unmade. Your continued presence has allowed investigations to reach depths that otherwise would have remained unexplored. The truth emerges more completely because of the extended timeline they never anticipated, revealing aspects of their crime that a quicker resolution would have left buried. Watch for these signs of their accelerating collapse. Sudden health crises among key conspirators, financial institutions freezing accounts without public explanation, property listings appearing with urgent sale timelines, unexpected resignations from positions of influence, abrupt cancellations of social commitments, visible security increases around their homes, legal representatives withdrawing from their cases. These markers signal the disintegration of their protection and the approaching consequences. The legal proceedings will reveal layers of complicity that reconfigure your understanding of recent years, casual interactions that now reveal reconnaissance purposes, seemingly random introductions that were carefully orchestrated, medical appointments that served monitoring functions, social invitations extended with strategic timing, relationships initiated with manipulative intent. The timeline of the conspiracy will recontextualize countless memories, exposing the operational breadth of their surveillance. Their eventual testimony will confirm what your intuition always whispered, their acknowledgement that you presented no actual threat beyond your claim to what was rightfully yours. Their admission that you never instigated conflict but merely stood firm in truth. Their confession that they recognized your inherent goodness and exploited it as vulnerability. Their recognition that they attacked, not because you wronged them, but because your existence itself represented accountability, they wished to escape. The financial penalties will extend beyond criminal consequences, civil judgments, asset forfeiture, restitution payments, legal fees. The economic devastation awaiting them reflects the material motivation that drove their actions. Those who conspired for profit will face poverty. Those who sought to claim what wasn't theirs will lose what legitimately was. Those who valued wealth above ethics will experience the collapse of both. The symmetry of this justice serves cosmic balance. The protection of your future demands strategic documentation now. Establish secured records of everything you've experienced. Create multiple copies stored in diverse locations. Record verbal testimony while memories remain fresh. Photograph evidence with chronological markers. Maintain journals with contemporaneous observations. Build a fortress of documentation that can withstand both legal scrutiny and future gaslighting attempts. Your lived experience represents primary evidence that cannot be replicated or replaced. Your survival represents more than personal victory. It establishes precedent. The exposure of this conspiracy illuminates similar patterns operating elsewhere. Your testimony creates framework for recognizing comparable cases. Your experience provides template for identifying related crimes. Your persistence demonstrates methodology for others facing similar circumstances. Through you, a wider network of operations becomes vulnerable to detection and dismantling. Your individual case expands into systemic impact that extends far beyond your personal circumstances. The court date approaches now not as the endpoint they envisioned, but as the beginning of revelations they never anticipated. The date they circled in red, the deadline by which you were supposed to be eliminated from the equation, the moment they believed would proceed without your presence. It arrives now transformed into something entirely different, not the burial of truth, but its resurrection, not the conclusion they planned, but the commencement they feared. And you will walk into that courtroom breathing. You will speak your truth with uncompromised clarity. You will stand as living testimony to failed elimination. You will represent every soul they assumed could be silently removed. You will embody justice that transcends their comprehension. You will demonstrate protection that operates beyond physical dimensions. You will establish precedent that outlives your individual case. You will transform from targeted victim to architect of accountability. The ancestral forces summoned to your defense move with ferocious precision. Generations of spiritual warriors stand behind you, their collective power forming an impenetrable shield against those who plotted your demise. The ancient bloodlines, flowing through your veins, carry memories of survival against impossible odds. Your genetic code contains the resilience of those who refused elimination, who persisted when systems conspired for their erasure. This cellular memory activated precisely when needed, triggering survival mechanisms beyond medical explanation. Their nightmares have already begun. The faces that appear in their sleep, stern, uncompromising figures representing justice beyond earthly courts. The sensations of being watched that persist even in empty rooms. The growing certainty that invisible presences observe their every action. The inexplicable sounds in vacant spaces of their homes, the electrical disruptions that cannot be explained by technical failures. The sudden temperature drops in specific locations. These experiences represent the first manifestations of accountability existing outside human jurisdiction, the initial tremors before seismic justice. The timeline between now and the court date serves critical spiritual purpose. Each day functions as purification, burning away denial, stripping illusions, revealing truth at deeper levels. The period serves as demarcation between world orders, the dying paradigm of their assumed power and the emerging reality of your uncompromised testimony. This interim exists not as empty waiting, but as necessary transition, the essential transformation between their expected outcome and the actual manifestation approaching with unstoppable momentum. They expected your death. The universe expected your victory. Only one of these expectations possessed the power to manifest reality. The court date comes now as confirmation of which expectation carried cosmic authorization. Understand the magnitude of what your survival represents. Beyond individual circumstance, your continued existence demonstrates fundamental principles governing reality itself. The triumph of divine order over chaotic malice. The preservation of crucial testimony against coordinated suppression. The protection of light-bearers against systematic darkness. Your personal experience transcends individual significance, becoming instead cosmic case study in unsuccessful elimination of divinely commissioned truth-tellers. The implications extend far beyond your specific situation. The divine signature on your existence proved more powerful than their conspiracy against it. The court date they feared arrives now, not as the deadline for your elimination, but as the commencement of their accountability, and you they expected absent, will be present for every moment of it.